Squatting is one of my favorite exercises to teach clients, and especially for those clients that are working on coordinating their pelvic floor with their deep core connection, as well as to work on glute strength. So it's kind of a multi-purpose exercise, and it's also very functional into our day-to-day movements. Squatting often gets a bad rap due to the fact that a lot of people complain of knee pain or other aches and pains when performing a squat. But it's not actually the squat, it's how we perform the squat that can make things not feel good. So I use this exercise as a great way to strengthen as well as to educate people on how to be able to perform a squat properly, because if you think about your day-to-day activities, being able to get in and out of a chair, getting in and out of your car, being able to go to the toilet, sitting on a toilet requires us to squat down as well as to get back up. So it's a very functional activity that we all need to be able to do, and we're doing it often throughout our day. So we might as well optimize it and make sure we're doing it most efficiently. So something I recommend people use to help them with getting a more efficient movement of their squat is actually taking a chair or a bench or a table and using that to actually line up their body and their knees actually touching the chair and their feet being put underneath. This will help to facilitate more of a hip hinge strategy, which is what is important in order to activate our glutes during a squat. If we do not get our hips back far enough, it doesn't allow us to take advantage of that glute strength, and instead a lot of people kind of just drop straight down into a squat rather than back into a squat. When we drop straight down, that facilitates more of a quad dominant strategy and does not allow us to utilize our glutes in that way. It also doesn't make it as efficient to coordinate our deep core system with our pelvic floor when we're doing more of a quad dominant strategy versus a hip hinge strategy. So let's go over how to maximize your hip hinge strategy and how to tie that in with your pelvic floor connection, also with our deep core connection while we're performing this movement. So back to the chair here as an assistant to help us with that hip hinge strategy. What the chair or a bench or whatever piece of furniture you're using here that allows you to slide your feet underneath, that's the key piece, will help to block your knees from continuing to translate forward and therefore force us into what we call that hip hinge strategy. So this is a great way to start to learn how to do that movement, and it also gives us feedback if we are sitting back into that squat and maybe we're starting to drift or shift unnecessarily over to one side. You'll be able to see that very quickly happen with the feedback that you'll see in front of the chair. One knee may pull away from the chair, or you may just very quickly be able to see, oh wow, I'm totally shifted to one side. A lot of people don't notice that they're doing those little adjustments, and that's the body's way of trying to work around places that we may have some weakness. So a chair or bench is a great piece to utilize in order to help us with our form when we don't have someone else being able to objectively look at us from the outside. So I start with my feet, shoulder to my knees touching the chair. I'm going to think about my breath, and in this case, we're going to utilize our inhale as we go down, and we're going to use our exhale as we come back up. We want to pair that exhale of the movement. So going down into our squat requires less energy because gravity is helping us go into that position, and also thinking about our pelvic floor relaxing through that phase, and then exhaling as we come up, working against gravity and challenging our glutes to help us return back up to our tall standing position. So let's tie it all together. So my knees are touching, my feet are shoulder distance, my rib cage and my pelvis are stacked right on top of each other, so we're making sure we're not starting with an arched back and we're also not starting with a rounded back. So keeping that nice neutral position. Place one hand on your low back, place one hand here in front so that you can monitor if anything changes here. This orientation does not change. It's the angle of my hip and my knee that changes to allow for a squat to happen. So I'm going to inhale here as I slowly sit back into my squat, allowing my pelvic floor to relax, letting my torso come forward at about a 45-degree angle. Again, making sure that nothing here changed. I'm not overly arched. I also didn't just round my back. So I'm keeping that neutral position. I also want to remind you to be thoughtful of where your gaze is. A lot of times people come into their squat and they're looking straight ahead. Again, now I'm arching my neck, and that will often create more of an arched low back for people. So if I keep my vision looking kind of down at where the floor and the wall meet, that will allow my neck to stay in neutral with the rest of my spine. Once I'm here, another piece is think about your knees. They want to stay touching the chair, but also think about gently pressing them outward to help us find our glutes that little bit more. Our knees should stay right in line, tracking with our feet. As I'm down here at the bottom, I'm going to think about my exhale. I'm going to start to connect my pelvic floor, low abdominals all the way up as I stand all the way back up tall. At our tall standing position, if our knees come away from the chair a little bit, that's fine. It's more to help us into our descent to make sure, in order to allow us to get that glute activation. So again, I'm inhaling as I lower, exhaling to drive back up. Give that a try. Let me know how it goes.